Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about investing in Air France KLM. It's obviously these airlines are combined. Right now Air France KLM is one of the cheapest airlines out there, and for many people it is very appealing. And as a Dutch person, I think Dutch people are most likely to favor KLM because of home bias, and that's also why people have been asking me why I'm not investing in KLM. So in this video, first I'm going to give you the main reasons why I'm not investing in KLM, and at the end I'm gonna share with you basically the reasons to invest, just briefly, and maybe you can just make up your own mind about this investment. So let's start with reason number one. Well, the main reason why I'm not investing in Air France KLM is because they are hardly profitable. And in recent years they have been at least a little bit profitable. If you just compare the revenue to the bottom line, so to the profit, it's not remarkable at all, and it's kind of scary. You're basically treading on a thin line there, especially if you think about how the company has been existing for many decades now. So in general, when you have like a mature company, sure, it's still cyclical, but when the cycle is in your favor, then I suggest, or I would hope, that the company at least makes a lot of profits. But if we look at this chart, and this will probably be most obvious, this is what they have published on their website. It's a bit outdated, and it feels like the rest of the website is also outdated, by the way, which is just, I don't know, something that I felt or noticed. And just look at the last time they paid dividends. That's 13 years ago. And if you look at the earnings, like how much losses they made over the past 12 years, like the earnings, the positive years that they've had, really don't make up for all the losses they've made. So and just looking at this and everything that's happened, like if I'm going to invest in a company that is going through an extremely rough time, probably the hardest time it's ever gone through in the past, I don't know, probably in its lifetime, I at least want the previous past, right before that very unfortunate event, to be, well, very good, or at least good, and I don't see these results as good. 2018 and 2019 were a bit better though. I'm gonna show you this in another chart, which is from QuickFS. You might recognize it, and I want you to mainly focus on this part then, 2018, 2019. Sure, it's still profitable, but just look at the operating margin. It's very thin. They're treading on thin ice, basically. Like there's only one bad thing needs to happen, and well, the company is going to make a lot of losses again. And obviously that bad thing has happened, and while I do think this is temporary and at some point we will all fly again, I'm not sure how this will impact a company that has barely been profitable until this moment. Reason number two is a very inconsistent return on invested capital, and this is just visible on QuickFS, and while I'm not sure the data is entirely correct, the way it moves tends to be correct. So the numbers might be a little bit off if you calculate it yourself, but it's not going to be that far off. It's great for an initial scan. And this is basically their return on invested capital, and obviously it's negative when the company has made a loss, and it's going to be very steeply negative if they have a substantial loss, which they had in 2012, 2013, as we have just seen. And something I want to remark is that in 2005 they had a high return on invested capital, so that's 15 years ago. And it's quite ironic because in 2004, so just a year before, that is when Air France and KLM decided to merge into the big airline that they are right now. So I don't see the company having a good return on whatever they are invested in, and it's basically in line with the barely profitable part, but it is also something that you want to look at, and maybe there's something different that you see there. The reason number three is that they have high market shares. While this in general in the aviation industry is very appealing, and with high market shares, I mean wherever they operate, they basically have a monopoly. Well, or it looks like a monopoly. So if you look at KLM in Schiphol Airport, I believe they have about 70% of market share there, and the same goes for Air France in Charles de Gaulle in Paris. So they have high market shares, and this is actually what you want to see in a business, especially in this kind of industry. But if you see such high market shares, so from that position you can basically decide the prices that you want to put, then what you expect when you have like almost a monopoly in that sense, you expect them to be profitable. And the fact that that is not the case is a bit worrying for me. That doesn't mean that they don't have the potential to be profitable, because I do think that's there, but I'll get to that in the end. But if you have high market share and you're not profitable, then I believe something is fundamentally wrong within the company. I cannot conclude because of these numbers what it actually is, but I do believe something is off. And yeah, if you're taking a high risk, high reward investment like the aviation industry right now, you want to have a little bit more confidence in a company, at least for me personally. So if we think about the high market share, obviously this was very country specific, but we can look at the top 10 airlines, and yeah, the one I want you to focus on is basically their two main competitors. That's Lufthansa Group and IAG, and this is obviously the company I made a video about a few days ago. And no, Air France KLM. So of these three airlines, they have the lowest amount of passengers. So they're about 121 million, while IAG is about 140, 150 million, and Lufthansa has the most with about 190 million passengers per year. And then I'm talking about 2018, 2019. Why does this matter? If you think about Lufthansa Group, like I don't know the entire airports that they, I wouldn't say own, but that they have the highest market share on. But for example, IAG shares the market share in Dublin with Ryanair, which obviously takes a lot of the passengers from Dublin to anywhere in the world. But you have the main hub is London, and you also have Madrid and Barcelona. So that's three and a half, I would say, because London is not really the monopoly main cities, compared to Air France KLM, who only has two. And if you then see how much passengers they move around the world, is actually put the capitals into comparison, then Air France has the highest amount of passengers per hub, I would like to say. So that is something interesting, because that means that they are, or wouldn't say it necessarily means, but it is likely that they are operating in a country where people are more likely to fly. So that is appealing. Well, in addition to that, I would like to look at the revenue that these companies made, and then compare it to the amount of seats they have occupied in these periods, and then check how much revenue they have earned per seat. So if you look at, let's start with Lufthansa, obviously the highest revenue, most passengers moved, and that leaves us with a revenue between 191 and 193 euros per seat. If you look at IAG, it's a lot lower, which actually came to a surprise to me, because I do believe that IAG with British Airways has more of a monopoly in the more favorable airline routes, flight routes. But it comes down to 169, 168 per average, and something that was even more surprising to me is that Air France KLM had the highest revenue per seat, between 219 and 223. So while this doesn't tell you everything, because it could be the case that Air France and KLM have the most long-haul flights and therefore have the most revenue per seat, I think on average these companies all have a similar long-haul and short-haul and mid-haul flights, And then the fact that Air France KLM is able to ask the highest revenue per seat is and then to be the least profitable one of all three, leaves me with mixed feelings. On one hand, I think, okay, this company is not run very well right now for for shareholders in particular. But on the other hand, I feel like this company has a lot of potential and they could unlock a lot of earnings if they manage their costs better. So it's mixed feeling on that part, but as long as we haven't seen any turnaround in the past 15 years, I don't see why we were gonna see one for Air France KLM in the next 5 years. And the last one is little growth potential. So I believe both markets where they mainly operate, that means let's say Paris and Amsterdam, while I do believe these are going to be attractive cities for a very long time, the fact that these are the places where they operate leaves them with very little growth potential. They do, however, both have Transavia, and they have both Transavia Netherlands and Transavia France. So this short-haul flight on shorter airports, they will be able to grow, but to their top line, so revenue, I don't think it's going to be that impactful. And I do believe that in the bottom line they will be more impactful, but on the overall growth, so revenue and so on, I don't think it's going to be making that much of a difference. That being said, let's just look at the sheet we previously looked at, and just looking at a 10-year period, or 9-year to be precise, the revenue fluctuates a lot. It's relatively steady, but you cannot really call this a growth. So what you can mainly expect from a company like this, I believe, is that they at best grow at the rate of market, of the overall market. And in this case, I would say, okay, the amount of passengers that are flying from Europe are expected to grow, I believe, about 5% per year. So if you want to have your most optimistic estimations, I think that those are your growth percentages that you should be looking at, which in my opinion is not that appealing. And overall, when I looked at the investor relations page, I didn't get a vibe of this company is going to lead us into the next century or decade or something like that. For me personally, it lacked vision. It lacked a mission. It lacked vision. It lacked something that I was like, okay, well, this is something I can actually get on board with. Of course, they mentioned sustainability and stuff like that, but I'm more talking about a business expansion kind of mission or vision. So you're a major airline, what you should be looking at is to consolidate the industry, in my opinion, because then you can have some cost efficiencies and get higher earnings per share. If KLM is going to do this, and maybe one day they will, then this could be a very interesting investment. But until then, with these earnings, I don't think it's a very good investment for shareholders. That doesn't mean that the company is not going to rebound. I wouldn't be surprised if any airline is going to rebound in the next 6 months and gain 100% based on the current valuations. Like, it really wouldn't surprise me. It's just based on sentiment. I also wouldn't be surprised if they drop even further, because yeah, it's just whatever people are feeling at that moment, or whatever the market sentiment is. The thing is, though, looking at these reasons, I had mixed feelings, as I mentioned before, because I feel like this company is in the position to make a difference for shareholders. Like, if you just look at any airline in a consolidated industry, or even in Europe, I guess, you can see what the minimal operating margin should be or could be, and the moment the company achieves this, look, I can see this share price increase a lot, because the moment you have some consistency in the earnings, then people are willing to pay a decent multiple for it. So I do believe a turnaround is possible. I just don't see it happen anytime soon, and I'm wondering what needs to happen. Like, for me to invest in a company like this, I would need to see management having more focus on that. And while we see obviously management focusing on survival right now, before I didn't see, well, when I looked at the previous years, I didn't get the feeling that they were caring that much about it. And yeah, even my personal experience, I've had experiences with Air France KLM, both of them, and when I had to switch tickets, it was possible to switch tickets in between the companies, but they didn't do it for me. So the moment I had to switch to KLM, I had to call KLM, and the moment I needed a refund from Air France, even though my ticket was in KLM, stuff like that. So the vibe I got from it is that they haven't really consolidated their business very well, and I do not see any cost efficiencies as of yet. However, the thing is, I do believe it's possible. Like, if these companies are willing to basically reorganize themselves and just completely reorganize their business and the way they run their business, then who knows? It could actually be a decent investment. And in the next page, I will just list the 3 main reasons of why one should invest in Air France KLM right now. And yeah, the first one is the cheapest major airline out there right now. Like, I believe the market cap is 1.2 billion. And if you compare that to a Lufthansa, which is like 4.8 billion, and in International Airlines Group it's 5.7 billion because of the equity increase, then sure, it's the cheapest major airline. And if people are willing to pay a similar amount for at least the revenue that is being earned, then you can see a share price increase of like 200%. Second reason is that they both have high market shares, and with the way the rules are implied for both of these businesses, I do not see that they are going to lose their market shares unless they decide to not stick to the main airline rules. And I'm talking about the airport slots for the respective airports, I should say, that they operate in. Then yeah, they're gonna keep their high market shares. And yeah, reason number 3, I do believe that this company has a potential for high earnings, and as I said before, yeah, I don't see it happening anytime soon. Like, you need management to recognize this. I need management to make the necessary changes, and the moment we get news reports of that in investor meetings from Air France KLM and stuff like that, sure, it's going to be a very appealing company to look at. But with everything that's been going on and all the deals that they had to make with the governments and stuff like that, and the loans, and with the unions and stuff like that, I don't think that they are able to reorganize the business in a shareholder profitable manner. So that's it for Air France KLM for me today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am very curious what you guys think of Air France and KLM. And I want to know if you guys invest in it as well. And if not, what are your reasons to not invest in this company? So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Like the video if you want to help me out. And see you guys in the next video. As always, please keep in mind that I am not a financial advisor. The content on this channel and on my website is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only.